He followed every order, killed without blinking, until one day, he didn't. This is the story of a man the darkness thought it owned, and how one whispered cry brought him back.
It was the early 2000s, a small, dusty town, Marfa, West Texas. One gas station, one diner, and a run-down military recruiting office that never closed, not even on Sundays. The asphalt was cracked, the houses abandoned, windows boarded up. In summer, the streets smelled like hot metal and dust. In winter, the chimneys puffed out thick smoke from whatever would burn. At night, you could hear a dog howling and a diesel generator humming somewhere in the dark. Life didn't move. It dragged like a dried-up creek. He grew up without a father. His mom worked night shifts. He learned early. Don't cry. Don't complain. Don't ask. At 15, he was hauling sacks at a warehouse just to buy himself a pair of boots that wouldn't fall apart. He used to say, "First you get hard, then they can't break you." When the draft notice came at 18, he didn't fight it. He almost welcomed it. The military felt like a natural extension of everything he already knew. Submission, silence, structure. Where others panicked, he found peace. No choices, no decisions. Everything decided for you. From day one, he was easy, never argued, never asked questions. Precise like a clock, silent like concrete. Officers liked that. Fellow soldiers didn't get it. He finally felt like he could disappear the right way. Not as a forgotten kid from Marfa, but as part of something bigger. Regulation, clean cuts, clear orders. Most of all, the chance to stop being himself, to become a function, just execute. And it felt sweet, almost comforting. If you have no hope, you can't be disappointed. If you expect no justice, you don't suffer when it fails. No questions, no pain. Each day felt like a simple command. Get up, move, shoot, shut up. And he obeyed. Not because he wanted to, because it was easier. When you become a cog, fear disappears. You stop owning responsibility, not for yourself, not for others, not even for death. He started to feel a different kind of freedom. Cold, brutal, but honest. The freedom of being nothing. A machine. No grief, no guilt, no fear. And the longer he lived that way, the more he believed feelings are a weakness. The soul is dead weight. The less human you are, the more ready you are for war. He didn't pray before missions, didn't kiss his dog tags, didn't ask God for anything. He loaded his mag, checked his watch, and waited. God didn't answer in the mountains of Afghanistan. Other forces ran that place, and he'd been on a first-name basis with them for a while. He was the guy who never flinched, who did what others couldn't. He entered first, shot first, sometimes without warning. In one raid, they were told, target inside. Militant, wife and kid, possible threat. They kicked in the door. The man reached for the wall. He shot him. The woman screamed. He fired a burst. Silence. A 4-year-old girl sat in the corner, hands over her ears. He walked out without a word. All clear? They asked. He nodded. Another time, a tip about a guy on a bike. No weapon, just a bag. The guy didn't stop. He opened fire, dropped him. The bag had rice and a coat inside. He stared at the blood pooling on the rocks and told himself, "This isn't your fault. You're just following orders." He said that a lot, too often. Said it to stay sane. Said it to drown out the voice inside whispering, "You're not a soldier. You're an executioner." But he shoved that voice down. Told himself, if not me, it would have been someone else. I do it clean, fast, no suffering. That was his logic, his shield. He breathed steady. Where others shook, he counted his steps. Not because he was braver, but because inside there was silence. Dead silence. That's what he called it. He used to think that silence was strength, that cold meant control, that emotions ruined aim. He didn't cry when they dragged his buddy out in a black bag, didn't yell through 5-hour firefights, didn't pray when the blood hit his boots. He just worked, like a tool. Then came the dreams, normal at first, then weird, then not his. In them, he wasn't himself. He felt something breathing through him, speaking in his voice, making choices he wouldn't make. He'd wake up sweating, fists clenched. He started praying, not to God, just into the dark. "Leave me alone," he'd whisper. "Just give me silence." And the dark answered. One guy in his unit noticed, said, "You want something that works? Jesus won't help. I've got something else." He gave him a flat, heavy symbol, said, "Ancient protection." The ones who wore this, they came back. Not all, but more than most. He wore it, and the control came back. He started sleeping again, eating, in missions, solid as steel. Even when they found the child in the rubble, dead, shrapnel in her throat, he didn't blink, just wiped his face and walked out. No sorrow, no rage, just cold. He wore that symbol every day, laid it on the map before missions. Sometimes whispered words he didn't recognize, but they came anyway. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He'd become something else. Something inside him was watching, and it liked what it saw. Then came that day, Clay House on the outskirts, intel, possible militant courier, 3 targets, orders, no prisoners. They breached fast, room by room. In one, a teenage boy, 16 maybe, skinny, old t-shirt, hands up, no weapon, just eyes, locked on. There was no fear in them, no hate, just a heavy, crushing sadness, like he already knew what was coming, and didn't even beg, just waited. He raised his weapon, but his finger froze. For the first time in years, something human flickered. Not a function, not a machine, just a man. His chest tightened, his throat closed. If he pulled the trigger, something in him would die forever. "Take the shot," his partner yelled from behind. He didn't move, just stepped aside. The kid bolted, out the window, gone. An hour later, pulled from the mission. Next day, interrogation. No windows, 1 chair, 1 light. They came in waves, yelling, threatening, sweet-talking, then yelling again. He sat straight, eyes locked forward. "You compromised the team. You endangered the op. What happened to you?" He said nothing. Not because he didn't want to, because he didn't know how. How do you explain that for the first time in years? You felt something, and feeling was weakness. And weakness gets people killed. One officer slammed the table. "You're not a soldier. You're a crack. And you're leaking." Still nothing. But inside, something breathed. A piece of him long buried, stirred. They reassigned him to an office. Paperwork. Bottom rung. No combat. No deployments. No noise. They stuck him in a room with fluorescent lights, a humming AC unit, and stacks of reports. Around him, other guys like him, half broken, half present, eyes empty. No one talked about the past. Every day felt like cotton stuffing jammed into a clock. He sat there, pen in hand, forms in front of him. And something inside cracked. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Started twitching at sudden sounds. A door slam? His body jolted like under mortar fire. Voices around him sounded filtered, warped. His head fogged. At some point he realized the damage wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. He'd wake up soaked in sweat, reaching for a knife that wasn't there. Hear footsteps in an empty room. Smell burning, even with the AC on full blast. Sometimes he'd sit in the corner for hours, still, silent. because if he let his mind run, he'd snap. He didn't resist, just kept placing that symbol on his desk like an anchor. But the more he stared at it, the more disgust he felt. Because this thing, it wasn't protection. It was the beginning of his erasure. The moment he let go of who he was, of conscience, of life. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but he sure as hell didn't know how to be a man. Every day in that office, in that buzzing, airless room, he thought one thing. I made it back, but I'm not free. I survived, but I'm not alive. When his contract ended, he just vanished, dropped off the radar, rented a cheap room, picked up day labor on construction sites, kept his head down, didn't talk to anyone. But the nights came back with everything he thought he'd buried. Not nightmares, memories. He saw the boy's eyes, the blood, the symbol, the dark, and a voice, not his own, whispering, "You said you'd serve." One night, he woke up screaming, grabbed the symbol from his nightstand, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, hollow inside. He fell to the floor, back against the wall, fists in his hair, and finally cried, not from fear, not from guilt, but because all that was left inside him was silence, a kind that felt like death. And in that silence, for the first time in his life, he spoke aloud. "I don't know who you are. I don't know if you even hear this, but if you can pull me out, do it, or finish the job, because I can't live like this anymore." He didn't hear a voice, didn't see a light. But for the first time in weeks, maybe months, he fell asleep. No dreams, no screaming, no demons in the dark. The next morning, he walked. No plan, no direction, just walked. Somehow, his feet brought him to an old church on the edge of town. Weather-beaten siding, crooked cross on the roof, front steps sagging with age. On the porch sat a pastor, simple flannel shirt, coffee in hand, eyes to the sky. He stood there for a while, then asked, quiet and raw, "You really think someone like me can be pulled out?" The pastor didn't answer right away, just looked at him and said, "If not, I wouldn't still be sitting here." Since then, that's where he's been. Not on stage, not behind a mic. He carries buckets, fixes benches, sometimes just stands in the back, watching people pray. And inside him, there's silence, but not the dead kind, the other kind. The kind that feels like mourning, the kind that feels like maybe, just maybe, something is starting again. He doesn't talk much, just does what needs doing. But one day, they asked him to speak at a veterans gathering. The room was full of the same eyes he saw in the mirror for years. Men who slept with a gun under their pillow, who couldn't explain what was broken inside because it didn't have a name. He stood up, looked across the room and said, "I know what it's like to live like you don't have a soul. I know what it's like to do what you have to, just to stay alive. I know what it's like to beg for death and still wake up. So if you're here right now and you think you're too far gone, I was deeper, and he still reached me." At the back of the room, a man stood up, hands shaking. He said, "I still feel the trigger under my finger, every night." The room went silent. He walked over, put a hand on his shoulder, looked him in the eye, and said, "So do I. But now that finger holds a candle."
No matter where you've been, no matter how far you've fallen, grace is still reaching for you. If this story spoke to your heart, leave a comment below. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. And if you carry your own story of pain, of searching, of redemption, we'd be honored to hear it. Share it in the comments or send it to us by email. Your journey could become the light in someone else's darkness. Don't forget to like this video subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell, not just to stay connected, but to help others find the hope you found. Because the more we share these stories, the more we remind the world, no one is ever too lost to be found.